Hello Indulge family and welcome to my channel. So today I am gonna make some rose water. Whenever you have roses and somebody gives you roses, it's always good to, make rose water before they go bad. Unfortunately, nobody gave me roses, but I did have to buy beautiful roses for a photo shoot. So I'm gonna take the roses, they're about 4 days old, and I'm gonna make rose water. So I've already washed and sanitized them, and with rose water, there are a lot of right ways to make rose water, and I never make the same formula twice because I use whatever I have on hand, and whatever I have growing in my garden is what I use. So I find the biggest pot that I can find, because this is a dozen long stem beautiful roses, so it's gonna make a lot of rose water. So I don't really measure, but I try to use at least 1.5 gallons of distilled water. That's why I said I get the biggest pot that I can find. And the good thing about the rose water, you can make big batches because you can freeze it, and it's good in the freezer for at least 6 months if you use it in a freezer bag. And that's typically what I do, is I will freeze it in small batches, and I'm gonna use it within 3 months, but it's just as good as you make it fresh if you freeze it right when you make it. So like I said, I don't measure, I'm just approximating about 1.5 gallons of distilled water. Let's try a little bit more, because it's gonna make, even with 1.5 gallons, it makes pretty potent water. And I always add at least 1 fresh lemon, because I'm going to use this primarily for hair. It promotes hair growth, so I try to add as many items that will help boost the rose water to make a better product. You can also use it on your face, and you can use it on your entire body. I mean, there's limitless uses for rose water. It's just good on everything. And then I also use ginger. I did clean this and I cut it up pretty small. Smells amazing. And I leave the skin on because I always believe that there are a lot of vitamins and nutrients in the skin. And then earlier I made some green tea extract, and I had some leftover tea. So everything I have left over, I have chamomile tea, green tea, some candela flower. I just had that left over, so I just poured that in, because, like I said, there's so many different ways that you can make rose water. And what I have in my garden, I have some rosemary, so I've already washed it, and I'm just gonna cut it up, and again, it just smells so amazing. Scissors would probably work better on this, but I'm gonna go ahead and add my rosemary. I love the way rosemary smells, but rosemary is great for promoting hair growth, and it also helps rejuvenate the follicles if they've become dormant. I also had some sage in my garden, so we're gonna cut up a little bit of sage. And we're gonna add that. And lastly is my basil. I have a whole yard full of basil. What the sun hasn't destroyed is what I'm using here. And again, I'm just gonna cut it up. So I had already cleaned this and let it dry. And the last thing that I'm gonna add is just a little bit of honey. I don't want to add too much honey, but again, honey is really good for both your hair and your face. So we'll use a little bit, just a little spoonful of honey. And I'm just gonna mix these together. And I mean, this really smells so delicious. I smell the rosemary, the sage, and of course the roses. And what I'm gonna do is put the top on, and I'm gonna put it on the lowest heat possible on the stove. Very low heat. And I'm gonna add my mixture. And I'm gonna let this very slow infuse for about 6 hours. I'll check it about once an hour, but it should be fine. I like a very, very slow, deep infusion. So we'll check back and wrap this up in about 6 hours. Okay, so we're back to wrap up our rose water. And I'd let this simmer on low heat actually for more like 10 hours. And it could still go probably another couple of hours if I wanted it to. There's still a little bit of red in the roses, but I'm actually okay with this because I do use the rose petals for something for myself, so I'm okay if they're not 100% infused. But the first thing that I do is I add about 4 cups of aloe vera. Like I said, this is optional, but it gives it a bit of a boost. So let's get that in there. Right. And I also add about a cup of basil. And I like to add at least a half a cup or a cup of vegetable glycerin. Since we have such a big pot here, we're going to go ahead and add a full cup. And I did add those extra items before I run it through the filter because I do want the rose leaves, the rose petals to pick up on everything that I just added. All right, so let's go ahead and drain these. Let's see how big of a mess that I make. Get my gloves on. This is when I wish I was a little bit taller. Just do, probably won't do the whole thing. and it did make a very beautiful color. Pour some so you can see what it looks like. So that made a nice, beautiful deep red. So I'm very happy with the color. I'm actually very happy with the smell. You can add fragrance oil to this, add rose water. I don't, because I love the way the fresh roses smell, and you can smell a little bit of the lemon and just some of the other flavors, and it smells beautiful. But you can add some fragrance oil and a little bit of vitamin E. So this recipe does make a pretty big amount. So I will show you how I freeze. So I just write today's date on a baggie. And then I normally freeze about 4 cups at a time. So it's just easy to just kind of stick it in a bowl. And then you just pour. I shouldn't do it this way, but it's just easier, but it makes a bigger mess. So that's a little more than 4 cups. And then you just seal it, and this is a freezer bag. Try to get some of the air out. And then I normally put it inside of another bag, like a grocery bag, and then you can just put it in the freezer. And I mean, it'll be good for at least 6 months. But I mean, I use rose water every day, so being able to have some readily available when I need it, I just take it and I stick it in a bowl and let it thaw out naturally. And then what I do with rose petals, and this is just for me, I get these mesh bags from Amazon, and then I just put a little bit of my leftover in a baggie. And then you can just close it. And then I take this and I hang it over the bathtub so it just dangles inside the water, and you get an amazing bath. And then you can take this and use it as exfoliant and rub it all over your body, and you get all the firsthand nutrients from the rose water, the aloe vera, and all of the other herbs and teas that I put in it. So you just get to take an amazing bath, which is why I do like to leave a little bit of the color in here, because if you put this in the refrigerator, it's good for a couple of baths. But those are just kind of some of my little secrets, and I hope you will try this recipe. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and hit the notification button when I come out with new videos. And I always like to experiment with something new so you can kind of learn, and I love to hear your feedback on this. If you try this recipe or do some modification of it, I'd love to hear from you. But thank you. Goodbye, Indulge family.